Hello everyone, I am Dr. Fernando Hurtado, Tolleson Union High School District's English Acquisition Program Coordinator. In this module, you will learn about important information that pertains to the English Acquisition Program. In the first section of the module, I will discuss subtopics related to the English Acquisition Program. I will first go over general information regarding English learner enrollment, both at the state and local educational agency or LEA level. This presentation will also include information about the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, and how it pertains to our English Acquisition Program. I will briefly discuss how federal funds under Title III are used to ensure EL academic achievement. I will also give a quick overview of the identification and procedures we have in place at Tolleson Union High School District for proper placement of incoming and current ELs. Some of you have heard about the recent legislative changes that have occurred at the state level that have a direct impact on our English acquisition program. I will go over the EL programmatic changes at TUHSD. During the 2019-2020 school year, we implemented the ILET ELL program in our ELD classrooms. ILET ELL is an online platform where ELs are engaged with English acquisition lessons, and I will briefly go over some of the features of this new online educational platform. The Arizona English Language Learner Assessment, or AZELA, results are a huge component of your site's letter grade. I will go over important information related to the assessment and how such results relate to your site. And finally, I will briefly discuss some of the guidance received from the Arizona Department of Education regarding students who are receiving special education and ELL services and their participation in the spring reassessment AZELA. Now let's look at state EL data. More than 1.1 million students attend publicly funded K-12 schools in Arizona. Approximately 950,000 of those students attend one of more than 1,700 traditional public schools, with the remainder attending one of more than 500 charter schools in the state. Out of 1.1 million students in Arizona, approximately 83,500, or 7.6%, are English learners. Now keep in mind that these numbers are from 2017 and have increased slightly since then. Here we see a breakdown of the percentage of Arizona's English learners within each high school grade level. In a different module, I will break down detailed EL enrollment data that is specific to your site. Now I will go over data that pertains to our district specifically. As you can see, out of close to 12,500 students in our district, 588, or 4.7%, are identified as English learners. These 588 ELs are currently enrolled in ELD reading and ELD writing, a 2-hour block. Note that the 588 number does not include those English learners that have been identified as parents withdrawn, reclassified, or dual label, those who receive both special education and EL services. The purpose of this graph is to show you how many current English learners are enrolled in our district. Here is a breakdown of the number and percentage of identified English learners at each site. Consistent growth has been observed at all sites. However, both Sierra Linda and Copper Canyon have experienced substantial growth in the past couple of years. Again, these numbers are for the current school year 2019-2020. These numbers reflect EL students who are currently enrolled in ELD reading and ELD writing, the 2-hour block. Here is a breakdown of English learner proficiency levels according to last school year's AZELA scores, and in some cases to this school year's mid-year AZELA. As you can see here, Sierra Linda has a large population of intermediate ELs. West Point High School has 9th and 10th graders only. Therefore, they have small numbers for now. Westview has traditionally maintained low English learner enrollment. Here you see a 3-year growth comparison of EL enrollment growth in our district. During the 2017-2018 school year, we had 334 English learners enrolled in ELD classes. The following school year, 2018-2019, we had a 15% increase of English learners enrolled across the district. 386 English learners were enrolled in ELD classes. This school year, 2019-2020, we had a total of 588 English learners enrolled in ELD classes, an increase of 52%. In the past 3 years, we have experienced a 76% increase in English learner enrollment district-wide. For the upcoming school year, 2020-2021, I am projecting 130 or a 30% increase of English learners district-wide. Our district office is fully aware of current and future housing development within our boundaries, which may be playing a role in our increasing numbers. Our efforts continue to ensure that students' needs are being met and services to our parents go uninterrupted. This gives you a quick overview of the number of incoming English learners from our 5 partner districts. Our 5 elementary partner districts include Tolleson, Union, Pendergast, Fowler, and Littleton. Because families move, Azella results come in late spring, open enrollment, etc., these numbers might fluctuate. They may be slightly higher or lower. My office will have a better count of incoming English learners from our partner districts in July 2020. In this next section, you will get a general idea of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, Title III federal funding, and how they pertain to our English acquisition program. In the last several decades, English learners have been among the fastest growing populations in our nation's schools. ELs comprise nearly 10% of the student population nationwide, and in many schools, local LEAs and states account for an even higher percentage of the student population. ELs also comprise a highly diverse group of students who bring with them valuable cultural and linguistic assets, including their home languages. The ESSA recognizes the unique needs of English learners, including by acknowledging the heterogeneity with the EL subgroup, for example, recognizing separate groups of ELs such as English learners with disabilities, recently arrived ELs, and long-term ELs. The ESSA also provides guidance on how Title III funds may be used to provide supplemental services that improve the English language proficiency and academic achievement of English learners, including through activities that increase the knowledge and skills of teachers who serve these students. As the overseer of the English Acquisition Program at Tolleson Union High School District, one of my many responsibilities include ensuring that our Title III funds supplement and not supplant the services that must be provided to English learners. It is important for Tolleson Union High School District to use Title III funds in a manner consistent with federal and state law and guidelines. ESSA requires that each state adopt English language proficiency standards. In Arizona, newly revised ALPS will be implemented in the 2020-2021 school year. Tolleson Union High School District is obligated to use Title III funds in ways that build its capacity to continue to offer effective language instruction, educational programs that assist English learners in meeting challenging state academic standards. Access to effective educators is critical for supporting English learners. So research has shown that teacher effectiveness is strongly correlated with student success. In order to promote positive educational outcomes for ELs, preparation and professional development for teachers of ELs and school leaders should improve instruction, increase teachers and school leaders' ability to implement effective curricula for ELs, increase students' English language proficiency, and improve students' academic achievement. Some of the parent and family engagement activities conducted using Title III funds include community participation programs, family literacy services, and parent and family outreach training activities, which may include English as a second language courses for parents and families of ELs in order to assist parents and families in helping their children improve their academic achievement, and to help parents and families to become active participants in the education of their children. The Immigrants Subgrant helps to serve immigrant students and families. An LEA who receives subgrant monies must use funds to provide enhanced instructional opportunities for immigrant children and youth. It is my duty to report to the state on the programs and activities being funded out of Title III, number and percentage of English learners making progress toward English language proficiency, number and percentage of ELs who attain proficiency, number of percentage of former ELs who meet academic content standards for 4 years, and any other information required by ADE. I do want to add that disaggregating student performance data may provide valuable information on how different subgroups of ELs are performing. These data can inform program improvement and help LEAs and states address gaps in achievement between EL subgroups. Long-term English learners may need unique supports to address both academic and non-academic factors, such as social emotional skills development that may impact the time it takes them to attain English language proficiency. Academic factors may also impact the time it takes them to attain English language proficiency. For example, some long-term ELs may have not received the high-quality English language development services they need to learn academic English, and may not have access to English language materials and supports outside of school, such as assistance with homework in English. Once an English learner is identified as proficient, he or she is no longer required to be in the ELD environment. Under Title III, they are considered former ELs and not considered for reporting purposes. However, we are still required to offer additional language assistance services where needed to meet a student's civil rights obligations. At Tolleson Union, we monitor proficient students for 2 years. EL instructional assistants in partnership with English language development and content area teachers offer academic support by providing tutoring services before and after school. And the main purpose for supporting reclassified students is to ensure they continue to meet the challenges of the mainstream curriculum. And finally, Title III reporting requirements are intended to track progress toward achieving English language proficiency for students identified as ELs, including English learners with disabilities. More on ELs with disabilities will be discussed in the last section of this presentation. In this section, I will provide you with a quick overview of the identification and placement procedures of English learners that are in place here at Tolleson Union High School District. As a reminder, our English Acquisition Program is governed by federal regulations and state guidance from the Office of English Language Acquisition Services, a division of the Arizona Department of Education. My office takes necessary steps to ensure that students are properly identified and placed, and at the same time we are in compliance. This protocol outlines each responsible party's tasks to complete as a student moves through the enrollment process. This process is mostly to guide registrars, data clerks, and EL guidance counselors in coordination with my office on what items need to be completed for student appropriate placement. You can always reach out to your site EL guidance counselor or my office if you want to learn more about the EL identification and placement process. All U.S. states are required to include a primary home language other than English or a float survey as part of their enrollment packet. At TOHSD, the float is available in English and Spanish. Here you see the recently updated float that could also be found on the Arizona Department of Education website. The float is also located on our district website under the Curriculum's English Acquisition Program section. If a parent answers one of the three questions you see here with another language other than English, then our office is flagged to do further research on the student. In most cases, if a float form is sent to the district office by an EL guidance counselor or registrar, the student is an English learner or has been in the system in the past. If you are a teacher who believes a student needs language services, you need to contact your site EL guidance counselor or my office immediately. After a student has been enrolled at a site, the EL guidance counselor or data clerk or registrar will send the file to the district office. The English Acquisition Program's administrative assistant will complete the form you see here. It is the EL Student Identification and Placement Form, or SIP form. This will provide the site registrar, data clerk, and/or EL guidance counselor with AZELA test information that guides for appropriate placement. AZELA scores help determine, but not always, which level of ELD class a student needs to be enrolled in. For example, they can either be enrolled in Level 1, Pre-Emergent, Emergent, or Level 2, Basic, Intermediate. The SIP form must always include my signature. My office strives in sending documents back to the sites promptly to ensure appropriate placement. The parental notification and consent form for student placement in an English learner program notifies the parent that their student is enrolled in an SEI environment for 2 hours a day. The form will show the parent which structured English immersion program their student has been enrolled in. In the case of TOHSD, an English learner would be enrolled in the Structured English Immersion SEI 2-hour model because that is a program being offered at our district. As required per ESSA, ELD teachers and parents must sign the parental notification and consent form. This form is sent home at the beginning of the school year or any time a new English learner is enrolled in our program. ELD teachers collect returned and signed forms and give them to their site EL guidance counselor. The form is then placed in the student's cumulative file and a scanned copy is sent to the district office. After an English learner passes the AZELA, he or she no longer needs EL program services. They are not required to be enrolled in ELD. However, they are still monitored for 2 years. The notification of reclassification form is signed by the site principal and the director of English Acquisition Program. A copy is kept in the student's cumulative file and a copy is sent home to the parents. The 2-year monitoring form for fluent English proficient students is used to track the progress of reclassified students, those who have passed the AZELA. Students are monitored for 2 years as they engage with the mainstream curriculum. EOCAs, AZ Merit, AZELA, ACT scores are some example data that is included in this form. In addition to assessment results, the form also includes student quarter grades. This form is also kept in the student's cumulative file. The written individualized compensatory plan, or WICUP, is a form filled out by the ELD teacher offering compensatory instruction. For example, if an English learner is attending after-school tutoring, the ELD teacher fills out this form and lists one measurable annual goal and any instructional objectives targeting English proficiency. ELD summer school teachers will fill out a form for each EL student who attends our specific EL summer school program. The parent withdrawal process is the last item I will highlight in this section. If a parent wishes to remove their student from EL services, they may at any time. It is their legal right to do so. However, it is very important that all educators understand that the exiting a child from EL services is only initiated by the parent. It is never initiated by the teacher, counselor, principal, assistant principal, district office personnel, or any other district employee. This process is governed by Arizona statute and will be enforced by my office. If you're a teacher that is unsure of this policy, please contact your site EL guidance counselor or my office for further guidance. If a parent decides to remove their student from EL services, they must come to the school's office and make an appointment with the EL guidance counselor to discuss other educational alternatives. An opportunity to discuss educational options must be documented before the parent request to withdraw form is signed. Very important, this form is never sent home for a parent to sign and return. It is advised to reach out to the English Acquisition Program staff for further guidance. Also, a student who is removed from ELL services does not exclude him or her from the AZELA. In many cases, students and parents do not understand this critical stipulation. Students will continue to be monitored and assessed with the AZELA until an overall proficiency level of proficient is attained. If you want to learn more about the English learner exit by parent process, please call my office. In this section, I will go over AZELA's English language proficiency levels, a quick overview of the recently passed Senate Bill 1014, which impacts our EL programming, the state-approved SEI 2-hour model that will be implemented at our district, and how teachers can identify ELs in the district students' informational system, Synergy. There are 4 AZELA language proficiency levels: pre-emergent, emergent, basic, intermediate, and proficient. The pre-emergent emergent student has little or no ability to understand, speak, read, and write in English. However, the student is able to understand a few common high-frequency sight words and simple sentences in English. In the area of reading, the student is able to comprehend with the aid of picture cues, a few simple content area words, and indicate the meaning of some common signs, graphics, and symbols. In the area of writing, pre-emergent emergent student has limited ability to write in English as shown by writing isolated words, 2 to 3 word phrases, and simple sentences using keywords that are posted and commonly used in the classroom. A basic English learner is able to speak using on-grade English grammatical structures and linguistic forms. However, many errors or irregular forms often impede communication. This student is able to use accurate but ordinary and somewhat limited vocabulary and is able to participate in social conversations, responding to questions, and describing past events. Regarding reading, a basic EL can determine the meaning of figurative language, including similes, metaphors, and personification, and knows the meaning of some multiple meaning words that have a different meaning in mathematics. In the area of writing, this student is able to produce independent writing that uses on-grade English conventions, yet contains errors that may impede communication. Essays have recognizable introductions and conclusions, although ideas are not always sequenced. And finally, the intermediate English learner is able to use accurate, purposeful, and somewhat varied vocabulary, and is able to participate in social conversations, responding to questions, expressing feelings, and reporting on events. The student is able to summarize main ideas, supporting details in an oral discourse on personal, social, or academic topics with little repetition or rephrasing required. The intermediate EL knows the meaning of many multiple meaning words that have a different meaning in mathematics and is able to summarize main ideas in text and can use information from text and text features to determine the sequence of activities needed to carry out a procedure. The student is able to produce independent writing that demonstrates adequate control over simple sentence structures, uses on-grade English conventions, and has some errors that may impede communication, and create essays in various genres that include identifiable main ideas that contain general supporting details. The intermediate English learner does quite well if engaged with, for example, the freshman English curriculum, but may still struggle with long reading selections or essay writing that requires multiple paragraphs. Most importantly, the goal is to prepare the intermediate EL to pass the Azella so that he or she is able to navigate content-specific academic language. Once the student has tested proficient on the Azella, he or she will be exited from the language program. The student will be monitored for 2 years. Monitoring consists of keeping track of students' grades, district, state, and/or national assessment scores, and providing compensatory instruction if needed. In the past, we used to enroll English learners in a 4-hour block. ELs received instruction from 4 literacy domains in silos as seen here. One class period to cover reading, one class to go over writing, and so on. After the passage of SB 1014, high school English learners only need to be enrolled in 100 minutes daily, 2 periods of ELD. This means that English learners will have access to additional content-specific curricula. The idea is for English learners to have more integrated language development learning experiences versus what was in place these past 15 years. As I mentioned before, Arizona law still requires high school English learners to be enrolled in 2 hours of English language development. Here at Tolleson Union, we have updated the academic planning guide to reflect these 2 changes. The SEI 2-hour model implemented at our high school district is one of the 4 models approved by the State Board of Education this past winter. To learn more about the new SEI models, please visit the Arizona Department of Education website or contact my office. One of the top questions I receive from teachers is, how do I know if one of my students is an English learner or has ever received ELL services in the past? I'm going to show you where to locate the indicator in Synergy to help answer that question. In Synergy, you can access a student's profile by entering his or her student number. After the student profile pops up, you will notice a little EL book on the top right-hand corner as shown here. When taking attendance, some students will have one or more indicators under their pictures. For example, these 4 students are all identified as English learners because they have the little ELL book below their name. If a student receives special education services, you will see a little backpack in the same section. That example indicator is not shown here. In this example, if you hover over the ELL book, a statement that reads, "Student receives ELL services" appears. The same happens when you hover over the little backpack for students who have an IEP. In this section, I will go over some of the components that pertain to the Arizona English Language Learner Assessment, or AZELA.
The Arizona English Language Learner Assessment, AZELA, is a standards-based assessment that meets both state and federal requirements to measure students' English language proficiency. AZELA is used for both placement and reassessment purposes. Students who have been identified as second language learners on the Home Language Survey or FLOAT form take the Azella placement test, and the students' proficiency scores determine appropriate placement for instruction. Students who have been placed into an English learner program will also take the Azella reassessment once per year until they achieve proficiency. Students who have scored proficient on the Azella are then monitored for 2 years to help ensure their success after moving into the mainstream classroom. The Azella is designed to give teachers in-depth information about students' language development across the domains of speaking, writing, reading, and listening. ELD staff who administer the Azella also sign a test security agreement like the one you see here. Proctors may include EL instructional assistants, ELD teachers, EL guidance counselors, and or district office personnel. Staff who administer the Azella are trained with modules created by Pearson as directed by the Department of Education. Proctors administer the test by using the Pearson Access Next portal. Our English learners take the Stage 5 online Azella test in Pearson's TestNav portal. As the English Acquisition Program Coordinator, I have permission to access on-demand reports for those students who take the placement test only. On-demand reports are made available 1 hour after the student has completed the entire Azella placement test. This allows my office, in coordination with the site EL guidance counselors, to place an EL student appropriately. It's important to know that the on-demand reports feature is not activated for the spring reassessment. The Azella student report gives you a snapshot of how the student performed. For a student to pass the Azella, he or she needs a total combined score of proficient, plus a reading score of proficient, plus a writing score of proficient. Notice in this example that the student was proficient in the 3 areas that I mentioned and passed the test even though he got a low score in the listening section. Official Azella scores are usually made available the first week of May. A copy of the student report is placed in the student's cumulative file, and another copy is sent to the student's home. Here's a closer look at the score report section. Notice that the student received a total combined score of proficient. However, he did not pass the Azella because the reading score is intermediate. A total combined score of 2550 is needed for a student to pass the Azella. The overall proficiency level section in the student report provides important information for both teachers and students. If you ever need access to your English learners student reports, please reach out to your site EL guidance counselor or my office. We will happily share this information with you. Some ELs might even share their student report with you. All you need to do is ask. There are 3 administrations for Azella. The placement test for administration, usually in August and then throughout the school year for new enrollments. The mid-year, usually given in December. And the spring reassessment test administration, with the testing window running from the beginning of February to mid-March. Pearson Access Next users are created and assign their roles at the test administration level. This means that users who have an assigned role for the placement test administration may also have an assigned role for the spring reassessment administration. Since each test administration is separate, a user may have the same or a different role depending on the test administration. The Azella District Test Coordinator, like myself, is assigned in all 3 test administrations. In the past couple of years, the Arizona Department of Education has allowed school districts to choose if they want to administer the Azella mid-year. If the district moves forward in administering the mid-year Azella, only intermediate students that are at the cusp of passing the Azella are recommended for testing. Proficient results are then calculated with the results from the spring reassessment to determine 10% of a school's letter grade. I pulled the 912 plan approved by the State Board of Education directly from the Department of Education's website. The plan shows you multiple indicators and how they are weighted. Notice that the English language learners growth and proficiency section accounts for 10% of a school's letter grade. For this reason, I stress that it is imperative that all educators continue engaging in quality professional development that promotes the application of strategies that support all students, but especially ELs in the content areas. This visual reminds us that in fact we are all in this together. In this section, I will discuss the online software used to foster and develop English learners' English language acquisition and digital literacies. ILET ELL is used by students in the ELD classroom, and they also have access to the online platform outside of school. ILET ELL complements the English language development core curriculum and the curriculum in other content areas. For example, students engage with content from English language arts, science, and social studies. ILET ELL's digital library allows students to choose from any number of titles that they're interested in and that are at their level. The ILET system also provides students with their Lexile score. There are over 5,000 titles housed in ILET ELL for students to choose from. Adaptive assignments are based on the student's level and based on the student's performance from the previous week. English learners will always be challenged through the adaptive assignments offered in ILET ELL. GRADE, which stands for Group Reading Assessment and Diagnostic Evaluation, is a normed assessment that meets a high level of validity. Teachers use GRADE to track students' progress throughout the school year. Students will take the grade 3 times during the school year. Once in the fall, August, another in winter, December, and a third time in the spring, May. ILET ELL also has a text translation feature. If a student is native to a specific language, the language has the option of being translated. Their book can be spoken to them, can be read to them, or they can choose different words to better understand what they are reading. Here you see an example. Notice the highlighted section. The student chose to translate from English to Spanish. The system currently has 46 languages for students to choose from. The ClassView portal allows teachers to export different reports, different progress reports, and different student summary reports. These reports can be used when meeting with parents, having discussions with other content area teachers, and or during IEP meetings if applicable. With the fluency practice feature, students can record their voice. They are able to receive feedback based on their fluency, and the teacher will provide them a score on their fluency assignments. Funds from our Title III federal grant are used to purchase headsets, for example, for English learners to engage with the ILET system as intended. As mentioned before, there are 46 languages to support English learners in their home language. In this final section, I will provide you with some important information regarding students who are receiving both special education and ELL services. Guidance comes directly from the Arizona Department of Education's Office of English Language Acquisition Services Division regarding EL students with disabilities. The Office of English Language Acquisition Services, OELAS, a division of the Arizona Department of Education, has made available a document to assist educators to develop our own local policies and procedures to identify and serve students who may be English learners, identified for special education, or both. This is a great resource that provides guidance on how to make sound identification and programmatic decisions regarding students who may have an English language need and or disability. I encourage you to read through the Identifying and Supporting English Learners with Disabilities document found on the ADE website. The English Learner Assessment in Arizona is known as AZELA. All students who enter school with a primary or home language other than English indicated on their float form must be tested to determine whether there are English language development needs. This includes the range of students with disabilities, from high incidence to those with significant cognitive disabilities. Students with disabilities are those with special needs who have an Individualized Education Plan IEP as determined by the Individual with Disabilities in Education Act IDEA, or a 504 plan as determined by the Americans with Disabilities Act ADA. Here you see the Universal Test Administration conditions for stages 3 to 5 online administration. Our TOHSD English learners take the stage 5 AZELA. The Universal Test Administration conditions may be offered to any student to provide him or her with a comfortable, distraction-free environment during testing. It is very important to understand that AZELA is an English language acquisition assessment. Its main purpose is to determine if a child has an English language need and will need additional supports and measure growth from one point, typically the placement test, to a second point, typically the spring reassessment test. ESSA stressed that students with significant cognitive disabilities must attain English language proficiency based on alternate English language proficiency achievement standards in order to exit EL services. Students, however, must meet criteria for significant cognitive disability. All qualifying students must be initially tested, then reassessed with AZELA annually until they reach proficiency. Students with both EL and special education needs are required to make an earnest attempt to all the domains tested. In other words, we cannot deny students who receive special education services an opportunity to attempt the AZELA. Here you see the AZELA accommodations for students with disabilities, stage 5. Some or all of these accommodations may be used for students with IEPs. Only those accommodations detailed in the chart or features embedded within the assessment are permitted. It is my responsibility to provide testing accommodation guidance to sites before any major assessment. And finally, based on the addendum to September 23, 2016 non-regulatory guidance and direct guidance from the Office of State Support, Arizona can no longer allow for IEP teams to remove an English learner with disabilities from EL services. The only way for an English learner with disabilities to be withdrawn from EL services is for the student to demonstrate English language proficiency on a valid and reliable English language proficiency assessment. If you have questions about English learners with disabilities or would like to learn more, please contact me directly with the information found on the last slide of this module, or contact Tolleson Union High School District's Director of Special Services. Your site Special Education Department Chair will also be happy to answer any of your questions about students in your classroom who are dual labeled. The last item I want to end with is this visual of gears in motion that captures everything that I covered in this module. Each gear represents an entity that is responsible for granting opportunities for our English learners to continue with their English language development and academic success. In a sense, if one gear is stuck, it makes it difficult for other gears to continue their rotation. All gears or entities must always be working collectively. For example, federal and state guidelines must be followed for compliance, and educators who work closely with our English learners adhere to our program's policies and procedures in place. To make certain the gears continue their rotations, I continue working closely with the District Curriculum Division team, the Director of Federal Grants, payroll personnel, site principals and assistant principals, EL guidance counselors, ELD teachers, and at times with content area teachers, site literacy coaches, and mentors, the ILIT ELL Pearson Associates, and the OLS team at the Department of Education, partner districts, and parents of English learners. You can always reach our department via phone or email. Your best point of contact at your site, who is knowledgeable with all the moving parts relevant to our program, is your site EL guidance counselor. I encourage you to pay them a visit and get acquainted. On behalf of the English Acquisition Program staff, we thank you for taking the time to learn more about how our district serves our English learners.